This is Support is Sexy, episode 297, with Monaica Ledell, CEO of Truth Hacking and Mommy Breadwinner. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And if you are finally ready to create a sexy business and life that you love, I want you to go to createsomething.com to apply for my high-level mastermind of women entrepreneurs who are serious about taking their businesses and lives to the next level with support, accountability, and action. Now, I've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks. The deadline is September 1st, which, if you can believe, is this Friday if you're listening to this in real time. So open enrollment is just for a short period of time. It's a tight, intimate group of women, powerful women, hand-selected all around the world who come together to support each other with accountability, commitments, celebrations, actions, and goals. So createsomething.sexy.com to check it out. Now, today, I'm super excited to welcome our guest, Monaica Ledell. I'm so happy to be connected with her. Monaica is, aside from a very enthusiastic, wonderful burst of energy, she is also a master at selling. And she talks to us and gives some great advice, I think, and honestly, it was advice that I could personally use on how to sell, how to close the deal, and the importance of realizing how much our self-worth is tied into how well we can sell. So we talk a lot about selling in this episode, in addition to her work as a serial entrepreneur, how she has helped her clients generate nearly $10 million in revenue through sales. So I'm very excited to share Monaica's tips with you. So what you'll hear on this episode from Monaica is the value of reaching out to people who are way ahead of you, why it's crucial to learn how to make that sale, why selling a person, a product, or a service is the same, what many women entrepreneurs get wrong about sales, something we all need to know, the difference in how women sell and how men sell, why you shouldn't try to sell like a man, how compassion and empathy can cause you to make assumptions, and the secret to success for serial entrepreneurs. So as I said, tons of great information. So we're going to dive right in with Monaica Ledell. So Monaica, thank you so much for joining us for Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
You know, it was just kind of given to us as a birthright. Really, truly, I watched my parents build something amazing and help thousands and thousands of people doing it from nothing. I mean, my dad jokes around sometimes that we're still poor white trailer trash, right? Like, how does somebody like that, when my parents got together and they had a dream and they felt like they had a mission on the planet and they started having children, and I was the first one, go from such extreme poverty to sending their kids to an elite prep school, all four of them, right? And footing the tuition, sending one child me onto a private university and putting all four of them through college. How does that happen? Well, I got the great American dream. It was given to me as a child. So it's all I knew, to be honest.
And how did they give that to you? Both of your parents were entrepreneurs, right?
They were, they did it in a couple of ways. I can remember being a really tiny little girl, and I guess I could have only been maybe about 5 or 6. And mom and dad had a dream. They wanted to help, change people's lives, and they were trying to get money together to buy a building. And what they did is they started cleaning bigger buildings. Anyway, they were commercial cleaners, third shift, which, is overnight, but they'd take me with them. You know what? My little sister wasn't born yet, so I could have only been 3 or 4. So I can remember sitting at these big desks of these important corporate men and women, but likely mostly men at the time, And they'd have little candy dishes, and I'd watch my mom and dad clean, and they were saving for this bigger dream that they had. And I really know that that's when it started. And then, from that point on, they always took us with us. It was always take your kid to work day, until we were in school. They didn't have any place really for us to go. Sometimes we would go to my aunt's house, but other than that, we saw my parents work. We saw what they did in action. We also saw them literally make it and create it from nothing.
Right. I can imagine that's a powerful influence. Like you said, not only watching them with their own business, but the hard work that goes into literal physical work that goes into a business such as that and building it from the ground up.
Well, and there was no spoon in their mouth, right? There was no even ability to go to the bank and get like a couple $100,000 or something like that. There was no knowledge, or it just wasn't in the stars to go get investors, that kind of stuff. No, it was blood, sweat, equity, right? And literally creating it from that place. And so I'm so grateful. One time my dad said to me, honey, I feel kind of bad. I'm the oldest of 4 children that he has. And he said, I don't know that you guys are very good employees. And I said, I don't think any of us have any goals to become permanent employees of anything, right? Why would you do that? It literally doesn't make sense. It's not in our DNA. It's not in the stars. And, by default, you just kind of raise your children like that. We're raising ours like that. I married somebody whose father was an amazing, hardworking, loyal man who stayed loyal to a company almost to the day he died. He retired, and a few years later, unfortunately, passed away. And there is something to be said for that, because the planet needs these workers and this loyalty. It's just not in my DNA.
Mm-hmm. Now, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, right in the smack dab in the middle of the country.
Wichita. So now what were you like as a young person? Of course, you mentioned going to watch your parents and their hard work, but what were you like? What was a young Monica like?
Good question. I got recently asked this by a coach, a high performance coach, and it kind of took me off in a direction I wasn't expecting. And I was just kind of laughing and chuckling. And I said, I wrote a lot of songs. I told a lot of stories. I wrote a lot of influential stories to try to get my way. Like I'd come up with this big presentation. I'd write this song and I'd have my sister starring in it, right? Like it's no wonder I own a high performing brand and sales company, right? I was doing that as a little kid.
How to write to influence.
Totally. I was like, I really want to go on this vacation. I don't know how I'm going to get mom and dad to get on. I was always kind of hustling in my mind, right? Like, how can I just get them to say yes to me? Mm-hmm. I remember thinking that a whole lot and dreaming of being on stage. We did a lot of outdoor stuff, but I'd say the bulk of what I did was either in activities, working, creating something at work with mom and dad, or literally trying to find ways to get my way.
Who would you say were some of your greatest influences growing up?
Definitely my father. He still gives me some of the best advice on the planet, which is, one thing that I've always held is leave people in better shape than you found them. It didn't matter if I was going to be renting an apartment. It didn't matter if I was just meeting somebody on the street, if I was walking into Target and paying for something. Leave people in better shape than you found them. Try to make a difference in people's lives. And just kind of owning that as a reputation in my being, right? That was one of the greatest things that he's ever said to us as children. The other influences that I've had have been great mentors that I've asked to mentor me. I asked a guy who I didn't know at the time, but later learned he sold his last company for $500 million. And, he's a serial entrepreneur, getting advice from people that are so far down the path, so much further than me. I've just naturally always done that because I'm so inquisitive. I just want to know the answer. Just somebody give me the answer. I can follow through, not a problem. Mm-hmm. But I need to know the answers. And so I don't have the answers. And there's a whole lot of people that pretend to have the answers, but they don't really have the answers, right? We know those people. I go after the people that have already untouchables. Like, hey, let me try to get in touch with a billionaire, right? Those are the crazy ideas that they don't seem so crazy at the time. It's just like, I know he has an answer for me, so let me get in touch. And actually, it's a lot easier to get in touch with billionaires than you'd think.
Mm-hmm. You just email them, and a lot of them.
Totally. And they just email you back.
Exactly. It's funny you mentioned that. We both like Entrepreneur on Fire podcast, which you were a guest on. But I remember, I can't remember the name of the person, but he was either a billionaire or was definitely a multimillionaire. And he gave, sometimes people give out their emails. I do it all the time, but I'm not a billionaire yet. But gave out the email, and I said, you know what? I'm going to email him because this interview was really good. And he wrote me back, and we correspond via email. And sometimes you think, oh, this person is never going to write me back. But especially if people offer it, I think sometimes, as you mentioned, going after or approaching people who are further down the line, I think sometimes we don't, especially as women, even take advantage when someone offers support, which I'm all about. Even when someone offers it, we're afraid to take it. We don't want to inconvenience them.
Feel guilty, feel bad, all sorts of issues around that we as women need to get through, put aside. My coach, okay, so I hired recently, I've always had coaches and mentors, but I hired an amazing, incredible, high-performing coach. Mm-hmm. One of the bigger investments I've ever made in my own personal development.
Now, how did you, before you start to interrupt, but how did you determine that was the coach you wanted to hire?
We just spent some time together. Okay. We just had some calls. I watched her, and there was this magical thing that was happening when I would get on the phone with her. And I thought to myself, literally, oh, thank God I have somebody that, this is going to sound arrogant, but I think a lot of women, if you'd own it, could identify with this, which is, thank God I'm finally talking to somebody who's at least on my level of further down the road. Because when you're a high performer, you engage with a lot of people that aren't necessarily at your level. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can hold yourself back and you try not to pay attention to it to really step into your greatness. As cliche as that sounds, but maybe it's more about we need to step into our brilliance, right? And really owning that. And so I found her to be intellectually stimulating. And I'm like, whew, mm-hmm. I have been on a search for a woman for so long. And I've had all of these male mentors and coaches because they can get the job done. But I mean, very few women that I've met, I would get that feeling. I'm like, oh my God. And so she was the first African-American Navy helicopter pilot in America. And so I'm obsessed. I have this obsession with military people. I love how military people think. Uh-huh. And so there was that piece. But anyway, so I hired her and she said to me at one point as we were kind of troubleshooting this issue, she says, Monica, now would a man do that?
Right.
And she goes, I'm not trying to offend you, but would a man do that? Mm-hmm. And it gave me pause. Because I kind of wanted to argue with her, be like, yeah, there's like this thing going on in my head. And what I said to her was, no, a man would not have done that. Because he would know, she said, right, because most men know exactly what their worth is. They may have emotional issues or whatever, but they know if they're going to go into a business dealing, they're not going to be messing with that. So stop taking deals below you.
Right.
Beneath you.
That's such great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, one, I need to find out her name so I can interview her. But yes. But also just this, to piggyback on what you just said, I've often said to people, I had to remind myself when you talk about what would men or most men do, where they talk about how women feel like we have to be, if not 150% ready in order to take an opportunity, where men can sell their potential. They might not, like you said, they might have a great sense of self, or they might not, but they're able to sell it as if they do. Yeah. Well, I can make up the difference, where we're like, no, we have to be twice as good, or think we have to do that before we even go after something.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now, what did you think that it sounds like you never really imagined a certain quote unquote job for yourself, but growing up, what did you think you wanted to become, or what did you study when you went away to college? What did you think was going to be your path?
Well, and hindsight is everything, right? So you kind of wish I would have done things differently. I'm always that girl. Like I try not to live in regret, but I do like to learn from past experiences. So I have a maturing 13-year-old daughter, and I have two other children. One is 4 and one is just turned 1 year old. So anyway, we've really spread them out. But I remember thinking to myself, all I want to do is grow up and be a mom. And I'm going to marry rich, and I want to change the world. So for a while, stepping into this role of high-performing female entrepreneur, I thought, I can't really tell other women that. Like, I need to tell them that I always thought about being a really wildly successful entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. And the truth was I didn't. I thought about all I really wanted to do is grow up, marry rich, and so I had a Prince Charming, and have children. but I knew that I would do something important. So I held on to that, but I think I was kind of lost, and I really wish I would have taken a year to just decide what I wanted to do, because I ended up in a private university, which, can get really expensive. And I was at an engineering school in Pennsylvania, which was the top 15th best school in the United States, mind you. It's nothing to be ashamed of at all,
right.
But it was not a good fit.
What school was it?
Lehigh University.
Okay.
And so, why was I at an engineering school when I was going to do psychology or pre-med? What was I doing there when University of Kansas Jayhawks, right? They have one of the best pre-med programs in the United States. Why was I in an engineering school, right? Or predominantly engineering school. And so I came home and for the most part studied marketing and psychology. I did start down the pre-med path and decided, man, if I'm a doctor, how am I going to have a family? And it reminds me of Samantha. You just did the author of The Pie Life,
yeah,
right?
Samantha
that was a great interview.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. And I thought, I wasn't really in tune with that decision at that time, but I kind of did divide it up into pies because I knew I couldn't be the mother that I wanted to be and be a doctor, a pediatrics oncologist. But I knew that I could maybe go into business or psychology and still be a mother. So I'm grateful for that insight, even though I wasn't really in tune with it,
Mm-hmm. So now, when did you then decide that because you have as you mentioned, you have 3 children, but at what point did you decide I'm going to start my own business? And which did you decide first? Because you have the mommybreadwinner.com and truthhacking.com. So when did you decide to make that first move, and what came first?
Wow, what did come first? What came first was I met the love of my life when the second year that I was at KU. And we just decided we're going to get married. And so we were in our last year of college. I was studying psychology. We ended up getting married. And I got pregnant right out of the gates. And I was not expecting it. And yes, we know how it works. And yes, right. We were at least trying to not have that happen. But it just didn't. The cards were, different.
The stars aligned.
The stars were different.
Exactly.
Totally. And so it was like, okay, well, this is awkward. I'm a college student. I'm married. So now I'm totally non-traditional and I have this baby. And I went, oh, hell, now what am I going to do? And I think that was at the very moment I knew a job was a means to an end. Like if I had to do things to pay off the car debt that I had or something like that. But my big money, my opportunity, my next life, this great abundant life that I was going to offer this amazing child that I'd always wanted since I was a little girl was only going to come through entrepreneurship. So that's when I started trying to do things. And I can remember I was doing it, selling things on eBay and where people kind of got hyper-focused right now in the marketplace on side hustles. I had several of those going on. I was also employed. I was also pregnant. I was also going to school. And then it occurred to me, people really waste a lot of time. I should just do business side hustle stuff because I'm going to get richer a lot faster. I'm going to make an impact a lot faster. We're going to be financially fluid a lot faster, right, than me working a job. Who would do that? And so once I made that connection, it just takes a little bit of money, to understand that. And you go, oh, okay. And at that point, that's when I decided I don't exactly know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to do something. And then I started.
So now tell us about your company, truthhacking.com, and what the term means. First of all, truth hacking. I love the video you did. Actually, I have to make sure I link to that video so everyone can see it. But the video you did around truth hacking, but what the term means to you and what your business does for your clients.
Absolutely. So I kind of got mentored into entrepreneurship in a lot of ways, or where I landed. My very first mentor that I asked to be a mentor called me and he said, Monica, I got change of plans. I said, okay. And this was over 10 years ago. And he said, I'm going to teach you sales. And I said, what? He said, I'm going to teach you sales. And I said, I don't really want to learn sales. I'm not interested in sales. Okay. I'm thinking, hey, didn't I hire you? And not that I was paying him much at the time. It was all like, when I get the money together, I swear to God, I'll pay you more. Mm-hmm. And he was doing me a great gift. That man absolutely changed my life because he said, okay, I'm going to put it to you this way. If you want me to mentor you, I'm going to teach you sales, because no matter what happens to you, no matter what happens to your business, and no matter what happens to the economy, you and your family will always come out ahead. And I went, okay. And I was scared to death. I was pissed. I didn't want to know about it. I literally, when he had me do my first sales exercises, and I'm getting to the point, and we'll fast forward to how Truth Hacking was born, but I can remember sitting there with a trash can, and my hands would just shake. And I'm thinking, I really have to pick up the phone and call somebody. I gotta sell them something. I mean, it was the worst exercise in the entire world. Totally almost got fired as a mentee from him 3 times. And what happened, fast forward after that point, is 18 months later, I'm co-vice president of an international personal development company, co-vice president of sales of an international personal development company. So I had a great mentor who saw a greater vision, who took a stand for me. I said, okay, even though I didn't want to. And I learned the skill, and I happened to be really, really, really good at doing deals. And so, go ahead. I think you're going to say something.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm so anxious to ask this. Sorry. About the moment though, where as you mentioned, your hands were shaking and you had to make this call. I think, even for me, honestly, with sales, it's a thing that some of us aren't certain how to do, or if we're doing it right, or if we even want to do, or sometimes we feel like it's, we're turned off by it, even though it's such a necessary part of business, right? So for you, how did you get through that moment where you were shaking and had to make that call? What was it for you? And then how did you get better at it? If you can, I'm sure that it's over time and a process, but if you could give people some idea.
I had nothing else. I had no one else in my life that I could think of that was willing to help me. And I knew this guy was going to fire me as a mentee, and I needed him. I needed him to teach me what he knew on how to be successful. And so I was willing to go through the pains of that, even though, I mean, it was literally one of the worst things I've ever had to do in business. Maybe the worst thing I've ever had to do was make that leap, right? And so I just said, I have nothing else. I have no one else. It's just me. He's told me to do this. Do you trust this guy? There's like a lot of mental talk. Yes, you trust this guy. Okay, so let's do it. Let's go for it. And I just got through it. I almost got fired twice before that, though, so I didn't do it perfectly.
Right.
But the last time he said, if you do not complete this exercise, I cannot help you. That's it.
So you had that, was completing the exercise making the sale, or was it at least making the call?
No. It was talking to somebody until either I got the sale or they hung up on me. And there was so much rejection that I went through in those few weeks. You literally, I mean, it's like he just threw me to the wolves, right? Now, hindsight, I could have gotten out of the pen. I could have left. I said, you know what? I don't want to do this. And I'm sure a lot of people have. But that's just, I guess God came in and said, no, you're going to stay here. You don't have nothing else going on. So nobody else is willing to give you a hand up here. This is your assignment. And I just walked through it because I wanted to succeed so badly. The thought, literally, of not succeeding versus the pain that I had to go through. The pain of not succeeding was higher, So from a psychological standpoint, you absolutely must always get yourself in that place or you won't take the action.
That's right. That's great. And I love what you said, too, about the idea of either someone throwing you to the wolves or you just jumping in and having to do it and experience and it's not even sometimes it is a physical pain, like you said, shaking or some physical reaction, I should say. But usually it's not a physical pain that we're afraid of. It's all mental. It's all in the mind. And that's the thing you have to get through. Do you find that also? Absolutely. And just reframing yourself and who you are, should they pay me anything? Am I worth anything? There's a lot of worthiness that comes into play with sales and women that I coach women on. I mean, just a lot of it that you're not as in tune with until you really start to do the deal. And like, if you're comfortable at selling 1K, have you ever tried selling at 100K? Because I have, and there's a jump that happens. There's a huge jump, right?
There's a huge jump, and you have to become that person, right? Every time you're going to take it up a notch, every time you want to grow your company, like we know this, right? And you've interviewed tons of people on your podcast that talk about this, but from a sales standpoint, you really have to step into that person that can provide that value and who's worth that value.
Now, you've supported clients like Lisa Nichols, who, pause for reaction, I love her.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. I haven't met her yet, but I love her. But you've worked with clients like Lisa Nichols and Jamie Masters, and I love her podcast too, Eventual Millionaire, and generated $10 million in sales for your clients overall. So what would you say then your specialty or superpower is, especially as it relates to sales?
Well, I have a unique ability to see what's happening in a marketplace and figure out how to disrupt that marketplace and gain customers. So gain the hearts, the soul of, that could sound bad, but that's why I only work with really amazing people who are doing amazing things on the planet, right? Because I have to lay my head down at night. So every time that they sell something, it makes a difference in the world, right? So that's really my specialty, understanding what's next, trends, brands, disruption, and knowing how to sell and actually make a conversion happen. Unfortunately, there are a lot of marketers out there, and they'll say, I'm going to teach you a technique, and we're going to employ this technique. Few marketers on the planet, and absolutely fewer quote-unquote branders understand sales.
Now, with your clients, do you help them by... Do you, for example, take an entire project and you package it and sell it, or is it more focused on copywriting? I know is a big part of what your company offers.
So we, soup to nuts, establish brand platforms, sales positioning in a marketplace. And that does involve copy and storytelling. It does involve sometimes launches. I am a high performing copywriter. You would hope that I would be, right? As being good at sales and understanding brands and kind of having that genius or savantness. But really what we help people do is create something in a bankable way. So I already know that clients are going to make an impact. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on the phone with them. If they're not impact entrepreneurs or leaders, I'm probably not talking to them. Sometimes you're taking a person out to marketplace. How do you take this person and make them bankable? Other times you're literally taking a product out, like a seasoning company that we have in Alabama, right? That's the greatest seasoning on the planet. In fact, my husband and I use it almost exclusively now on all of our meats and vegetables because it's just that amazing. So sometimes you're taking a product out or a service or a person. It's all the same. It's all the same.
All the same as far as the copy or the approach, or both?
Well, the approach is almost always the same. Sometimes you'll use different toys. I think that oftentimes too, entrepreneurs, and I can be guilty of this or have been in the past, which is I see all these toys. I see SEO and I see Twitter and I see podcasting and I see this and this and that. And I need to get my opt-in and I need to do my website and gifts and blah, 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 blah. We go on. What's happened is that technology has evolved at the speed of light, which has given us more opportunity and tools to carry our message to the marketplace. But if you want to be successful, you need to take about 80% of that off your plate. It's not relevant to you right now. So we have to figure out what's relevant to you right now, what's going to make the biggest difference in the next 90 days, 12 months, and then develop a really hardcore, amazing, strong strategy around that.
What would you say, since as you talked about so well that sales is really, something that you specialize in, what would you say that many women entrepreneurs get wrong about sales in their businesses, or that you've seen with clients that you've worked with who you may have had to pull along in a certain direction if they were going in a wrong direction? What's the big roadblock for many of us?
Well, other than just the idea of sales, like I don't know how many women I talk to and they're like, oh, I can't even stand the word. Like, I get it. Trust me, I was there too. But it literally is the transaction in transition in a business. It is the heartbeat of it. Men just don't have this issue. They're like, yeah, where can I get more sales, right? How can I bring more money into this company? And so I feel like women, for the most part, have that issue, which is pretty glaring, right? The other issue I find women having, and why I coach them on what I call the art of intuitive selling, is that they're trying to sell like a man. Right. And so they've been taught by men. Most salespeople out in the marketplace are men. They're very, very masculine and aggressive. Many of those tactics are old school, or they're not teaching this other side of things. They definitely wouldn't teach it to women. And so no wonder women have an issue with this. They need to be taught by women, as far as I'm concerned, because we have these other superpowers inside of us. And if you can start activating that in a client, sales start happening organically.
And what is the thing that you think is the main difference that you've seen, I should say? Obviously, you can't say necessarily for sure. What is the difference that you see in how men sell and how women sell effectively? So the first thing that came to my mind, for example, when you said that, is just the idea that women tend to be more empathetic in their sell or when they pitch or that kind of thing. But what have you seen that really seems to work for women?
Well, I don't know how many times I've asked a woman to tell me like a woman I'm coaching, how a sales scenario is going down, right? And they're like, well, I'm trying to diagnose where they're getting stuck in the sales cycle, where the customer is, whether it's on the technology or a landing page, or it's actually in a conversation or with one of their sales team members. And so you're going in and you're diagnosing. And I hear a lot of women say, yeah, I just don't think they're a right fit. Why? Why weren't they a right fit? Well, she's going through this in her life, or she's getting a divorce, or I had another client last week who told me, well, she's got cancer. I said, so? Maybe she needs you. This is like a really amazing client of mine who does this incredible life coaching, who has this experience. And she goes, I never thought of that. And so I think we let people off the hook. Our compassion and our empathy does act up in a way that it shouldn't. And you should almost try to shut yourself off, in some ways compartmentalize all the emotions and all the story that's happening in a client's life, right? It's because what happens is you start to separate yourself with a potential sale, right? And a bigger deals. You're just like, well, you're assumptive. And assumption really is just arrogance, right? I assume that I know everything that's going on in their life right now. Well, actually, you don't. Mm-hmm. You don't know that they may be willing to come work with you. So that's the first thing. And I think it's probably the number one blocker. The second is that they don't understand how to actually navigate a sales conversation. Men do, and a lot of men are selling still to a lot of men. And so when they're selling B2B, or they're just selling in general, they're just strong, they're fierce, they're in their leadership role, and women get afraid, like, I think I could be pushy or bitchy. Mm-hmm. And so
we're more concerned with the perception of us as opposed to the sale.
Totally. And what I say to that, rather than trying to change their ideas about that, because I agree, as a woman, it's different than getting sold to by a man. You might come off as pushy or bitchy. Why would you want to do that? Let's not do that. There's a better way, right? And so part of it is helping women connect with that part inside of themselves that knows how to guide a relationship way more intuitively than a man.
Mm-hmm. I love it, Monica. That's great. Now, you also have a passion for supporting mompreneurs through your brand, mommybreadwinners.com. And is the tagline, is it more dough, more play? More play, more dough. More play, more dough. I love that. I love that. I forgot to write it down, but it's stuck in my head, as you can see. So tell us then, why is this a personal passion of yours to empower moms?
Well, like I said earlier, I thought I had this fantasy, like, okay, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be successful. Oh, and I'm going to marry a brain surgeon. And I didn't marry a brain surgeon. And so I kind of came to this point in my life where early on, because I had a baby, right? I'm in college, I have this baby, and I'm like, wait a minute, I got to make some money here. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, he'll probably outperform me. And then that didn't happen. And I was on my own youthful journey of discovering how powerful I really was and my purpose on the planet. And so I started Mommy Breadwinner because I felt the pains of some of the work-life balance, but also, can you really do it all? Is that really a thing? Can you be successful? And there's a lot of women that I've talked to over the years, I've interviewed privately, and I've said, so you don't seem to have issues with not being at home or being a mother or some of those things, right? Like you have a nanny and you have all these things. And I've had a nanny at different times. But you don't seem to have like a guilt complex. They're like, no, totally don't have a guilt complex. So that's one like category of women. I don't really exist. Mommy Breadwinner doesn't really exist for that, right? Mommy Breadwinner is really about these women who are just caught in this, shouldn't I be doing this? I feel bad. I want to do this. How do I do it? And it's about being a better mother and a better entrepreneur.
And how
you can do.
Sorry, go ahead.
You can do both of those things. That can be a reality.
And you're living proof of that. You're doing that every day, right?
Yeah, I mean, you get to a place where you're like, I do not want to live with regrets. Mm-hmm. And so do I want to keep putting off this idea of being a mother because, oh, when I have enough money in the bank or my company is at a certain level, then I'll come home and be a mom. Well, I played that game. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't. And so how do you do both?
Now, speaking of doing both, what do you think about, let me see, how should I say this? You have two different companies or two different websites. I don't even know if they're two different companies or two different focuses. Was there a conscious decision for you to keep them separate? And is it because the target audiences are separate? And I ask that because a lot of people might be thinking about their own businesses, or they might have two different things going on and feel like, oh, I should just do this one thing, or how do I bring these two things together? Is it okay for them to exist separately? So I just am interested in your opinion because you have two very strong, distinct brands.
I sure do. and that's my gift. So here's the deal. Truth Hacking is very different from Mommy Breadwinner. Truth Hacking services companies and thought leaders who really want to create bankable, impact-driven, insanely successful brands, right? All the way from brand identification to brand performance and brand building. Okay. So that's one. Mommy Breadwinner exists because I couldn't get this out of my system. And once I started to figure things out, it didn't make sense for it to just stay with me. I really wanted to inspire women to lead a regret-free life, and that you could have more play, you could have more dough, you could really do both of those things. But there are seasons to your life. And so you got to figure out, right, how you're going to navigate all of that. And it's not about not reading the book to your child that night because you need to go take a bath or go to bed. It's about you better go read every word of that, because when you lay your head down at night, you're going to feel like you're a great mom. And that's going to spark more enthusiasm and drive for you and make you a better performer. It's going to require you, if you step away from your children, you'll get lazy as an entrepreneur. That's my experience. Mm-hmm. If you step into becoming the mother that you want to become, you'll actually find ways to be a better performing entrepreneur. So though they just have two very different heartbeats. But I'll also say this, the average millionaire has 17 streams of income. Mm-hmm. So the goal for us women should be investments and potentially real estate and maybe being an angel investor and having multiple companies. Why not? Men do it all the time.
Why not? I love that. And Jen Groover is someone else I interviewed on the podcast. I love her. Was a great influence to me, especially with moving forward with Support is Sexy as something. I didn't know what it was going to be at the time. But she always talks about, why do you have to drive in one lane? You know, you can exist in multiple lanes. And she's a serial entrepreneur. And she talks about having her hand in different companies, and that, you know, women, just as you said, should look to do that in different ways, as opposed to, now I believe in focusing on one thing as far as your path or your goals, one thing at a time. But I do think you can have your hands in many different areas.
Absolutely. And
be successful doing that. Excellent. That was really great to hear. Now, I want to go back to something really quickly that you mentioned earlier on with your mentors, because it sounds like you've had several over time. When you're searching for a mentor, someone or a coach to work with you, do you look at who that person is and what they've accomplished, or do you look at what expertise they can bring to you? For example, talking to someone that knows specifically about sales, or someone who knows, who will push you to do something else. How do you usually determine in finding the great mentors that you seem to come across?
Most of the great mentors, if I'm going to learn my skill set, this is just my experience. It doesn't mean that it would be your truth, but I've found that most people who are actually willing to teach you their trade are either like long retired, or they're going to charge you an arm and a leg, right? Mm-hmm. Because let's be honest, if you become a superpower, you become a threat, right? So they want to either charge for that or figure out how they can monetize that. My first mentor monetized it. I don't know that he looked at me as a threat, but he went, I don't know if this chick's probably going to be able to pay me, so why don't I teach her sales and then she'll grow my company? And that's exactly what I did.
Because you worked for him, or?
Because I worked for him.
Oh, okay, yeah. Got it.
So he mentored me into working for him, and then I was co-VP of sales.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
The international, personal development company. So what I'm looking for is somebody so much further down the path. Right? Like, I don't need somebody who's 10% better. I don't want somebody who's a couple million down the road. I'm looking for somebody who's done some insanely disruptive things. And I'm just like, how'd you do that? Start a conversation. What did it take? Who did you have to be? I have found, and maybe this is just like my taste, I have found that military people or people with a military background, even my clients who have a military background, they seem to be the best.
Is that because of the discipline, or what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's the discipline, and they absolutely know how to not get emotional and make a decision fast. Right. And so I am like a highly emotional person. Right. well, there's a line on my website that says, we could write a eulogy for every leaf that falls from the sky or from a tree. My high school AP English teacher told my parents that I could write romance novels, in high school. And so when you think about that from being from an emotional standpoint, like, I really like to get into it, but I need to know how to cut and dry, make decisions, compartmentalize, and make them quickly and be disciplined about it. And these people just do it on autopilot.
And obviously that's something that someone can learn. Right, as opposed to, I'm an emotional person, so that's why I fill in the blank, as opposed to, I'm an emotional person, I need to learn how to tap into this other part that's available.
Yeah, I'm looking for skill sets that I don't have, but I don't, most of what I've paid for in terms of knowledge comes through a payment, right? Like, okay, let me learn Facebook retargeting or whatever. When I'm looking for a mentor, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for, who do I have to be? Who did you have to be? What decisions did you make? How did you make those decisions?
Right. I use this saying when I give talks a lot. Who is the woman you have to become the woman you want to be?
I love it.
Let's take a quick break to thank our sponsors. So, as an entrepreneur, and especially as a solopreneur, you want to make the best use of your time. And I know for me, with booking guests and having appointments and consultations for Support is Sexy and the podcast, I don't have time to be going back and forth with everybody about scheduling. And that is why I honestly love and use Acuity Scheduling. I've been using it for about a year now, and it has saved me so much time when it comes to booking appointments and guests for the Support is Sexy podcast. In fact, I would not be able to do it without Acuity Scheduling. I love it and I use it. And I was so happy when I reached out to them and they were excited about supporting the Support is Sexy podcast. And I spoke to Kristen Barber, customer happiness specialist, who tells us about Acuity and a special offer that they have just for Support is Sexy listeners.
So normally, if you go to Acuity Scheduling and sign up for a free trial, we have a completely free 14-day trial, no card, nothing. But for all of our lovely Support is Sexy listeners, we are giving you guys 45 days totally free. So if you follow the link that Elayne gives you, you guys can get signed up 45 days, totally free. Check out any plan you want. So the highest one, whatever you need, and we'll just let you know when that's coming to an end. And you can either then put in your card info and keep rocking that account that you're on, or you can even just downgrade to our totally free forever plan. If you don't need some of the major bells and whistles, you can use that puppy completely free for the rest of your life, however you see fit.
And that URL is acuityscheduling.com/sexy.
That's right. We'll be keeping an eye out for you sexy ladies.
Again, that URL is acuityscheduling.com/sexy. So that's ACUITY scheduling.com/sexy. Make sure you check it out. It's well worth it. A 45-day risk-free trial. And look, we want to make sure that we support the brands that are supporting women entrepreneurs and Support is Sexy. So check it out at acuityscheduling.com/sexy. And now back to the show. What would you say entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Well, that's a deep question, right? So it's taught me a lot about self-worth. I'd say the most about self-worth, but also my ability to persevere. or I say Navy SEAL it, right? Like my ability to continue going even when the outcome doesn't look well. I feel so blessed that I get to teach my daughters this and influence them this way. I never had a boy. I just keep having girls. And I want them to know that they can be fierce and elegant at the same time. You can be classy and successful.
I love it. Now, in closing, Monica, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Believe it or not, it would have to be my husband, because he has stood by me through all of the crazy ideas. He's always created the space for me to get bigger, even if it meant that he may have to put his own wishes and dreams aside. He's always supported me with the kids. He's always supported me with the house. Last night I texted him in bed because I've got these 2 kids and I'm trying to get all the babies to sleep, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a spider, and I don't like spiders. And here I am talking about military, and I'm like, I don't really like spiders.
Exactly.
I know. Well, and it was complicated. It was on the ceiling. I knew I was going to obsess about it. I knew I couldn't go to sleep and put these kids to bed. I'm also only 5'2". We have a very high ceiling in our bedroom. It was complex. And so he says to me, okay, where is it? And I said, the ceiling. And he said, can I get to it? Is it an emergency, or can I do it after I get to it after I do the dishes? And I was just sat back and I just breathed this gratitude because I have a husband down there who just was willing to pitch in and do the dishes, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of women don't have a clear partner, or their relationship hasn't evolved into the partnership that they want and know they need. And some of them, it never will, and you have to get outside support. But my husband has been there and been the rock through it all.
Excellent. That's beautiful. Does the dishes and he'll kill the spider.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, tell us, Monica, how we can support you. I'll have links to everything. Of course, you gave some great resources in here, but tell everyone your websites, social media, anything else that you want us to know.
You know, I think that if you're looking to create disruption and bankability in a marketplace, visit truthhacking.com and tell me what's up. If you're looking to be a higher performing saleswoman, female entrepreneur, and you probably have children, send me an email through mommybreadwinner.com. I love connecting with people. I don't send things off to an assistant. I want to know the stories. So if you have something that I can troubleshoot right away, sometimes it only takes 5 seconds. And that's my way also of giving back. Of how many emails have I sent to higher performers than me, and they email me back with advice that's completely changed my life and business.
I might even have to take you up on that one. Like, take a look at this page. Tell me what you think. That's amazing. Monica, thank you so much. It was so great to chat with you. I appreciate you. Now, before you go, though, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
I would tell women to keep on knocking on those opportunities, seeking opportunities by, training yourself to see more. Don't just stick with the opportunities that are right in front of you. Like, think about, really put yourself in this space of what's possible. Get into wonder. Like, I wonder if that would even be possible. Mm. And when you do that, bigger opportunities start showing themselves.
Excellent. Monaica Ledell, hold on just a second.
Okay.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Monica. Great tips and information. To find out more and to get in touch with her, make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com and just search Monica, which is spelled Monaica. Again, Monica is Monaica. Search for her name. It'll show up. Her show notes page will be there. All the links, all the resources, and again, the ways to get in touch with her. And since this is Wednesday, I'm excited to share our review of the week. Thank you all so much for all the wonderful 5-star reviews. I appreciate it. It helps me. It helps the show. It helps more people get to learn about the podcast. And this week, the review comes from Miss Mel D. And Miss Mel D said, I stumbled upon Elayne's podcast while seeking podcasters who are of kindred spirit with what we enjoy helping clients with. Happiness and confidence. She has such a soothing voice that is cool, confident, easy to listen to. Thank you, Miss Mel D. She interviews so many inspiring women and asks questions that really pull a compelling, inspirational story from every guest. If this sounds like what you were looking for, she does deliver a great podcast worth your time. So thank you again, Miss Mel D, and all of you who have left reviews. I ask for them. I mean it when I say it truly helps me to get the feedback. It helps the show. So if you haven't already, please, wherever you're listening, make sure that you leave a review. Let me know what you think. Let me know what's working. If there's a certain guest that really resonated with you, let me know. It lets me know also if I should bring more guests on that particular topic. It just helps out a lot. It's one way of many for us to communicate. So I appreciate you leaving any review that you can. All right, so that's it for today. So until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.